Secret friends, unite!
Hey, welcome back, Secret Friends Nation, to Oops All Thunderdome, Secret Friends Unite. This is episode 548 on the scale of having done this show since 2014. But I am your originator. I'm Charlie. Here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm joined by a returning guest of mine. This is her first time on this show, but she has done the Patreon segment, which I believe we published to the live feed, talking about Spider-Man, the Spectacular Spider-Man. This is my friend Andi from over in Norway. Andi, hello.
Hello, Charlie. Nice to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. So I knew that if I was going to talk about a musical, which is what we're doing today, we're jumping into talking about Wicked for Good, that I wanted to have you on board. So thank you for joining me. So we're going to hop right on into that. I got a couple of matters of housekeeping to do before we get to that. But first and foremost, as always, I'd love to give homage to the wonderful people over on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon, over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, where we do have lots of exclusive programs like some of the work that Andi and I have done and will continue to do together, talking about Spider-Man on the small screen. But we also, Peter, who's my regular network partner, we've also been talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, which is frankly one of the greatest shows of all time. And we'd love to have you tune in. Exclusive shows, early programs. So you get this show, usually comes out on a Thursday, but it comes out 2 days earlier on our Patreon. So if you just can't get enough, that's where you can find us. And we've got an exclusive channel over on our Secret Friends Unite Discord just for our Patreons. Your first week is free. That's 7 days, half off your first month. So it's like $1, at the base tier, because our base tier is $2 a month. So we would love to have you on board. It's a lot of great entertainment. And as I always like to say, you're losing money by not doing it, which is not really true. But I think you'll find out for $2 a month that we really deliver. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. And we'd love to have you there. And secondly, we have a sponsor for the first time in a long time. Our show is brought to you in part by Argo's bookstore here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Wonderful place. I've been shopping there since I was 10 years old. And it is Grand Rapids' oldest independent bookstore. It's been around since 1975. And I didn't realize this, but Michigan's oldest comic shop. Is what Roger and Crystal, the owners, are letting me know. They took over back in 2022 and really revitalized the place, changed a lot of great things around. They've held on to the great 10% discount you get in the store through the Argonauts program that has always been there. If you set up for your comic book pulls 5 titles or more a month, you're going to end up saving that money, which is nice. Saving money is great. They also wanted me to let you know that they are always looking to buy comics, looking to buy used books. Find them on Google, Facebook, or Instagram, or give them a call. I know people give them phone calls, kind of weird. 616-454-0111. Today, let them know you heard about them right here on Secret Friends Unite. Again, that's our good friends at Argos Books in Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, housekeeping over. Andy's like, come on, wrap it up. We want to talk about this great movie. So Wicked for Good, or Wicked 2, if you prefer, just came out this past week, if you're listening to this when it drops. It's a musical fantasy directed by John Chu and written by Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox. It's a sequel to Wicked the first, if you prefer, from last year, from 2024, and carrying out the second act of the 2003 stage play, which is loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel. Listen, we're going backwards here, and then going back to the 1900 novel by L. Frank Baum, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which was, of course, now we jump forward, adapted into a film in 1939, one of probably the most famous film in the history of cinema, in my opinion.
Very important.
Very important.
Especially for part 2.
Absolutely correct. Yep.
When I started the Worldstage Theater podcast, which is my podcast, one of the first episodes I did, number 3, I think, was The Wizard of Oz, because it's just that important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, cast of this movie has a lot of the same players. Cynthia, it's a Revo, not I was going to say Ivaro. That's not how the spelling looks. The fantastic Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey. Wasn't he just voted the sexiest man in the world by People Magazine or something? I know he's very hunky, without a doubt. I mean, yeah.
I think he got
Ethan,
Sexiest Man Alive, yes.
sexiest man alive. That's what I thought. Ethan Slater, Bowen Yang from SNL, his role was very small. Marissa Bode, Michelle Yeoh, our fabulous Giorgio from Star Trek, and the irreplaceable Jeff Goldblum as the wizard himself. And then I'm going to talk about this a little bit as time goes on, but Coleman Domingo was added to the cast of this film. And I was reading this, I was like, what? And I just saw Coleman just in our last week's show. I had my regular partner Eric on talking about The Running Man, in which Coleman played a big role in that. So I'm going to get back to that later.
I remember seeing the press release for that.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, so he's going to be here. He's the voice of the Cowardly Lion. And I was like,
I missed that. And I was like, I had to go back. And of course, in our show flow, I have linked both IMDb and Wiki. So I had to go through IMDb and say, okay, there he is. But it just didn't end up having a lot to say. But anyway, I'll save that for later. Obviously, this is, again, set in the Land of Oz. But this one is really during the events of The Wizard of Oz. Now, and I'm sure you went back and probably watched the first film again, did you, before going into this one? Because I forgot to.
And not super recently,
okay.
But I did a bonus episode on that back in October. So
gotcha. But I do
for my own Patreon.
Oh, gotcha.
So
okay.
I don't want to do anything that recent on the main feed of my podcast.
Right.
I was like, intermission's almost over. We should talk about the first movie.
Right. Yeah. Good tee up. We're going to do the same thing next year that we did on this show for Superman, which was the big movie this past summer, for Spider-Man. The next Spider-Man film we're gonna tee up, and I'm sure you're gonna end up joining me for talking about the Spider-Man movies to date, but that's to come. Again, this is set during the events of the classic 1939 film. And it really draws out more the relationship between Elphaba, who is, of course, Cynthia, Glinda, or Galinda, if you prefer, who is, of course, played by Ariana Grande, as they're embracing their new identities because some time has passed, and I have a nit to pick about that, too, as the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda the Good, respectively. The adaptation was split into two parts to avoid omitting things, and it takes you back to a note that I had. It reminded me of the last couple of Harry Potter films, etc. Principal photography was done in England. They filmed both films pretty much simultaneously. It was stopped by the SAG-AFTRA strike in 2023, the summer of 2023, of course. It resumed and then wrapped up in January of last year. Released here in the United States on November 21. You got it a day earlier there in Norway. I saw it on Thursday of this past week, and then you said you saw it on Wednesday. Receiving mixed reviews, but we'll talk about that as we go by. All right. Instituting, and I told you about this in the pre-roll, and Eric and I kind of fumbled through this, and Scott tipped in the week before that we talked about Frankenstein. We kind of came up with this Marquis of Queensberry movie rules. Is first we talk about it, no spoilers, so somebody who hasn't seen the film can listen to it and then safely pause, see the film, come back and listen to us again. But in between us moving in to talk about spoilers, we give it a non-spoilery 1 out of 10 rating. So I'm going to let you take the mic and give me some non-spoilery thoughts about the film. So take it away.
Some non-spoilery thoughts to begin with. And the visuals are incredible, as they were in the first movie. The performances, also excellent, just like the first movie. The story is very different. It's engaging. It's a different tone. And I think
definitely different tone, yeah.
That might account for some of people going in expecting something more similar to part one. And it's darker, it's more directly political, even though that was there in the first movie, it's more at the forefront here.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at the stage show even, there's always been talk about, okay, Act 1, Act 2. And just the issue of having the plot of The Wizard of Oz happening whilst we have these sort of reinterpretations of the characters sort of running around the edges of it. And it's like, how do you have that plot happen when these characters don't exactly match up with what a lot of people have in their head from that original 1939 movie?
Right. Right. Gotcha. Very good. Yeah, I agree. And boy, I was talking to my best buddy John, who also saw this a couple of nights ago. He didn't like it; thought it was too dark. Thought that all of the good stuff was in the first half of the movie. And he said, "Well, why didn't they just cut and splice it and make it into a single film?" And I said, "All right, well, how long would it have been?" If they took these two movies and jammed together? He says it would have been like over 4.5 hours. So I'm like, okay. I will admit that based on his comment, and I respect, the perspective of my close friend, that maybe there were some pacing issues, some things that could have been sped up, this and that. But I'm also coming from a point of view that I don't have a frame of reference because I have never seen the musical. I will say, I assume there's a recording of it out there somewhere. If I ever wanted to see it, I would assume. Is that correct?
I mean, a legal pro shot? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there are always slime tutorials.
Oh, bootlegs, as they called them in the old days, stuff that
Yep.
you find on the dark web or whatever it is. But yeah, no, I enjoyed myself. I also felt, and again, in given my ratings, which I'll just jump forward and do because that's where I have some of my notes. I gave this like a 7.5 out of 10. I really, I thought it was a pretty effective use of the two-parter in order to really not cut much out. Unlike, I was thinking of what were those last two Harry Potter movies called? Because
Deathly Hallows.
The Deathly Hallows. Yeah. So that was all dark. So it's not like, oh, part one was airy and light and part two was like, and now we got to throw down or whatever it is. Where this was the yin to the yang. It was that meme where you have the girl with the bright rainbow hair smiling next to the girl with the dark hair and the glasses frowning, or if you think about Wednesday, which was on Netflix, it's Wednesday and Enid, her roommate, you know what I mean? So Enid was part one and Wednesday is absolutely part two. And I believe in all things in balance. I'm a follower of Star Wars and the Force. There can be no dark without the light, no light without the dark. So it was effective to me to convey the story elements as opposed to something like The Hobbit, which was a single book that they stretched into 3 films because they wanted some of that Lord of the Rings money to come back their way. And most people really don't like that particular trilogy, as I recall. But I think this avoided this. I think each of our main characters got something to do. Definitely characters like Bo and Yang got like a second, and then they kind of got shoved to the side. But what role, did he really have to play? And again, I'm also coming from a point where I don't have something to really say, oh, well, they left out blah, 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 because I've not seen it. But
and that's
I'll expand a little bit more about how the original film got worked into this film and my thoughts on that. But I really did, they really bookended this with how the first film began. It was really how this film ended. Hopefully that's not really a spoiler. And I like that. And I would say I deducted a little bit, because a few plot holes that I'll talk about kind of deducted for me. But overall, I enjoyed it. And there were parts of it I absolutely loved. What about you? Where do you stand with the rating?
I think I'll give it a rating of 8.
Okay.
Because, sure, there are things here, like, there are so many very good things, and it's an incredibly well-crafted movie. Like, I mentioned the visuals, I mentioned the performances, and the thing about the tone shifting is you have Defying Gravity, and yes, that is your sort of end of Act 1 out. Take the 20-minute break, go get another glass of wine at the bar, and come back to the theater.
You're right.
But also, if you remember that song, which if you have seen it, you remember it.
Oh, it's unforgettable.
Then the story sort of picks up here and sort of moves it forward.
Right.
And then Dorothy comes crashing in, and suddenly we have to sort of follow that path to
right through
to the end of the story.
Gotcha. Cool. Very good. All right. Well, now it's time to take the cap off the fire hose, get the toothpaste out of the tube, and let's talk about some spoilers. So, how about some absolute? And so, and this is I would mark the time, but I ended up getting it wrong. We're about halfway through, but now is definitely the time to hit pause. If you've not seen the film, go out, enjoy it. And come back and listen to our thoughts. And then, as always, over at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com, that is our mailbag. Let us know what you thought. Hit us up on any of our socials. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But Andy, give me 3 or 4 really special moments that you absolutely loved. The spoilers are totally fine. The warning has been, the die has been cast. The gauntlet is down.
Okay, one thing, and just to contradict us talking about how dark this movie is, it's Ariana Grande when she first gets the bubble. Like, her performance there is so wonderful. And she's like,
that is
I'm obsessulated.
Oh my God. And it's very reminder. And I know you don't have small kids, but when you get the kid that likes to touch a button, click, 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 stop that, click, click. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really like that as a little moment. And
yeah,
it's funny close to the end as well in a very different way when you think it's all over and then Fiyero comes back to the castle. Well, we find out it's Fiyero as the Scarecrow, and like that whole reveal of him, I also like that because that works for me.
Yeah.
It's you sort of have a balancing act here. Because I talked about how these characters are like Bach is a very different guy from Jack Haley as the Tin Man.
Right.
Like their personalities, like the backstory is different. It doesn't match up at all. Which, like, that's why I prefer to think of Wicked as its own thing and like as
it's another layer of the multiverse, which actually that might inform on one nitpick I had. So I'll come back to that. I love, and this is a weird thing, how in the different speeches that Ariana makes, that she refers to the denizens of Oz as Ozians. So I think Ozian, Aussie, like I have this obsession with Australia, planning to take a trip there in a couple of years. A couple of my 2 other favorite podcasts in the world, and I won't name any names, but anybody who's listened to the show for a while has probably heard me talk about them, are Australian. But I do love that a lot of the animals, when the animals are finally set free, we get koalas. I feel like we see a wombat or a flying squirrel, a kangaroos. I'm like, but nobody has that accent. But it feels like it's, and then the land of Oz is often a way that that Australia is referred to. So I found that really fun. That kind of made me smile. The big dance fight that they had when Belinda finally blows her stack and she wants to have, she wants to throw some haymakers and she wants to throw down with Elphaba. And then it turns into this dance fight where Elpha was flipping up and down, and she does this cackle, and Ariana just turns around and throws it right back at her, like that. I thought that was pretty great. It was fun.
I think like the fans of Wicked, both the stage show and now the musical, I think that's officially known as the cat fight scene.
The cat fight. I liked very much, and again, we talk about Dorothy, and like you said, this, I think thinking about this is like kind of like thinking about like different phases of the multiverse, like in Star Trek. You and I are both big Star Trek fans. There is the series of films that were initiated by J.J. Abrams, which are now which have now officially come to an end. The films that came out in 2009 and 13 and 2016 with Chris Pine and crew, which we know is a separate continuity or becomes a separate continuity from what we watch on television and the other films that we've seen. That's not a bad way at all to think about this. And then you also lump it right back to, thinking about the MCU and Endgame, which is probably my favorite movie of all time, and their explanation of the multiverse and creating, different paradoxes and stuff. So that kind of lets the kind of the air of one of my nitpicks. It lets the air out of the tire on this one. But I did like that. While Dorothy was here, very much shadow in the shade. If you saw her face, it was from a distance, out of focus, weird perspective. She had no scenes where she was taking the lead. To not make her a part of the film, to not make her another character in the film,
because that they are pulled between, okay, we're doing our own thing, and
Right.
this is Dorothy. This is Judy Garland as Dorothy. This is her
Right.
right here, right now. So they're in the middle of that, and sort of not showing her at all is probably the smartest way to go with the movie.
Right.
Because,
Right. Doesn't
like,
dilute.
either way, like, if you don't need it to be Judy Garland, it's okay. You can just fill that in for yourself. But if you really want it to be, it's easier to sort of imagine her being there when they do it this way.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. So yeah, and I kind of shot myself in the foot, not by probably really watching those the Wizard of Oz and then the first Wicked film again. I probably should have done that going in because I didn't. I'm not so familiar with it. I'm like, but they don't also really make it difficult to follow. Because I just kind of slid right back in there. But yeah, seeing Bach, Bach and Nessa, we found out that Nessa is who gets crushed by the house, which we always kind of knew. I do think, yeah, I wrote, Nessa kind of sucked, and I kind of feel like she kind of had what was coming to her because she decided it was super cool to enslave the Munchkins and regulate the Munchkins and stop their travel. And it's a little scary considering the things going on in the world right now coming from the United States. I'm not going to lie. I'm certainly no supporter of the way my government is behaving right now. I can tell you that right now. But yeah, that kind of thing is horrible. And quite, I'm a believer in karma, and I think karma came back and bit her in the ass. I think she kind of got something that was coming to her. I do think it's kind of weird that the ruby slippers kind of turned into pumps. I don't know if there's some kind of in-universe explanation for that, but you did end up seeing the feet of Dorothy wearing pumps.
Ruby.
Okay.
The very important thing.
All right, break down for me.
In the original book, they're silver
Okay.
slippers. And then when MGM was making the 1939 movie, they were like, we have Technicolor. We
got color.
Cool. So
Let's do
ruby
color.
slippers.
Oh, okay.
That's sort of copyrighted, intellectually tied up
right.
with the 1939 movie specifically. So whilst The Wizard of Oz is in the public domain, the ruby slippers aren't. So here, they're jeweled shoes. And
shoes.
In the first movie, you get one of the pairs that Glinda pulls out during Popular. Like, it's blink and you'll miss it, but she pulls out a pair. That's pretty much the ruby slippers. But also,
I get it. Okay.
When right before Bach gets turned into the Tin Man and Nessa's flying, they start glowing. And the jeweled shoes turn into kind of ruby shoes. Like,
got it. But
why around the issue?
Yeah.
But
okay. That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, and Bach goes right off the deep end. So yeah, he gets transferred obviously against his will into the Metal Man. But he seems when you kind of compare and contrast him to what you see in the original film, it's really very different. But yeah, he and the Cowardly Lion, which is Coleman Domingo, which again, I feel like I need to see this to even have any remember kind of what he did at all. But they have that kind of torches and pitchfork scenes that would tie in real great with the Frankenstein, which we talked about on this show a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I thought it was great, and it really had a decent amount of menace. So any other great loves before we move on to the inevitable nitpicks?
I wanted to mention, like, the music. Okay, so you don't necessarily have a standout like Defying Gravity or something as catchy as Popular, but I like Thank Goodness, No Good Deed, As Long As You're Mine, all of those songs, good songs. The two new ones are interesting, and they're not, like, they fit in, and they're decent songs, I'd say. So, need to listen to them again.
Yeah.
But, like, they get a thumbs up from me. And then you have For Good, which, it's more of a ballad, which is why it's not necessarily going to be as, much of a hit as the other two I mentioned from the first movie, but it's still so good.
Yeah.
And, like, can those girls sing or what?
Yeah, they didn't miss a beat. The musicianship in this was without denial. Absolutely, the start, because again, it's a fantasy film of some type, so there's some fantastical elements to it. But all right, well, moving into kind of what I call it missed opportunities or weird plot holes or et cetera, et cetera. I already had my gripe about Coleman Domingo, so I'm like, Coleman Domingo, I just don't feel like he was really, if he was so ineffectually used that I didn't even know it was him, that kind of bums me out, because I've been a fan of his since first thing I ever saw him in was the first spinoff of the Walking Dead franchise called Fear the Walking Dead. That was back in 2014, I think, maybe 2015. And he was the standout gray. He was kind of the chaotic neutral-ish kind of character of that show, and he was great. So I've been a fan of his for all that time. But even sticking with the Cowardly Lion, in the original film, obviously came in 1939. It was a dude in a costume. In this, he's a regular lion. And the first time I saw him as a regular lion was in this great movie. I don't know if you're all familiar, from the 80s, that was a sequel to the original called Return to Oz, starring Fairuza Balk, who later went on to be in The Craft, which is a movie about witches from the 90s that is beloved by my generation, but it's watched it recently. It's really not that good. It definitely doesn't hold up.
Return to Oz. I've heard of it. And usually people say that it's very scary.
It is, and again, I was probably 9 or 10 when I think it came out in 1985, so I was 9, and it was pretty scary, and but in that, the Cowardly Lion, he was a man, a cat, but he was a lion, where in the and then he's a lion in this, so. I think, I don't love retconning the look of stuff, which is kind of my biggest gripe with the current Star Trek shows that are on, because they're prequels. And so they've taken the way things looked in the 60s and they just completely changed them around. And then we're supposed to believe it's going to change right back again. But suspension of disbelief, don't get hung up on the small stuff. But yeah, I feel like if this was really supposed to be a part of that averse as it will, but then as you and I were talking, it's in its own way, it's split apart. It's different. And they're trying to find ways to make it different from the 1939 movie, in some ways to make this its own thing, and in some things because it's legalese, which I totally get. What about you? What's something that was a nit you picked on this?
I can't really think of a lot of them, but when, as I mentioned, I remember the press release, like, okay, we're finally going to tell you who's going to voice the Cowardly Lion. And I remember after a certain point, I was like, he only had how many lines? 2?
He said, "Oh, good. Well, it wasn't just me then."
That guy, and he has 2 lines.
Yeah, it's very wasted. It could have been anybody. It could have been some voice actor who gets credited as additional voices. If you ever look at the casting list of any cartoon, it was like Bill Smith, additional voices.
And I didn't mention earlier, because that's the scene before Elphaba's new song, where she's talking to the animals and she's talking to Dulcie Bear. So it was nice to see that relationship come back, since that was kind of a thing in the first movie.
Right. And the goat professor guy as well. Yes.
Yeah. But that's also where Cowardly Lion comes in, and that's where he gets to say something, because yes, he's there later
allegedly
with March of the Witch Hunters, I think is the name of that song.
Yeah.
But again, you just see him, and after that song was over, I think it was when I was like, really? That's weird.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of a big. And my second, I had 2 more, but my second one was I was struggled to figure out how much time has passed, because I feel like early on I feel like they say something using the number 12, and I figured, it's one of their little quirks in their language. But as I'm reading both either IMDb or Wiki, they said it was 5 years. But 5 years makes sense, and 12 years makes a little bit less sense, because again, you're dealing with characters that Glinda, graduates from school and she moves into public service, and they're doing the Yellow Brick Road thing, so that's going to take some time, and then obviously Elphaba's off doing her thing. But yeah, I just feel like it was kind of made unclear I like to have all my ducks in a row when they do a time jump. I mean, the best one, of course, and I'll go right back to Endgame. They gave, and I didn't see it coming, but it was 5 years later, and you thought, oh, okay, well, at least it advances our setting in a way that totally makes sense. You know what I mean? So, was that something? I mean, you had more of a frame of reference to me, but do you see how that's kind of like jarring to me, just maybe a tiny little bit?
No, I understand that because I think they also maybe adjusted that from the stage show too.
Oh,
And I remember
okay.
hearing them talking about it's been 12 time turns or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
okay, so 12, does that mean 12 months? So it's been a year?
yeah.
Okay.
Time
Yes.
turns could be 12 days. Yeah, 12 months.
Yeah.
If you
So I was
could,
like, okay,
yeah,
with the number
and they
12.
use clock tick like, hey, wait a minute, like, give me a clock tick here, I'll be back with you. That I get. That's an easy transition. But yeah, you're right. 12 time turns doesn't say 5 years to me in any way, shape, or form. That's not even mathematical. It's not even half of 12. That would be 6. You know what I mean? So it was bizarre. I just thought, I thought it was kind of too inside baseball for us mere mortals. You know what I mean? It didn't really help with the setting. And Fierro becoming the Scarecrow was shown in shadow and shade, and I get it. It seems, and then if I only had a brain, so obviously they did that, and then they took his brain out or whatever it is. Like, it was done very rapid fire, but then at the end of it, and I love how he faked Elphaba's death. That was awesome, super cool that she did. She had the trap door, and I didn't necessarily see that coming because my brain was in the cycle of the 1939 film, because that's what the entire world has been that much more familiar with for almost 90 years. You know what I mean? So it's cool to see that she still survived. But then he shows up and he's got basically like the potato sack skin, with the, and but the
And
so
once
she
he's
did, but
there,
she doesn't take.
we don't
She doesn't
see.
cure him though. I figured she'd just go, "Oh, I'm thank you for coming back. I love you," and now you're normal. So that just seemed all very fuzzy to me.
They say in the first movie, and they repeat it here, a spell from that spell book can't be undone.
They did say that. That's a valid point.
But
Well,
I'm
then,
gonna
so
point
yeah,
out about the way he looks. He has that like burlap sack face
exactly.
texture, but we don't get to see quite clearly his hair that's made of straw.
Right.
It's
He looks.
it's
Yeah,
you
he
see
looks.
it, but you don't get like
Yeah.
a close look at it. But I think that's fun, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just brings me back to his song in the first movie, where one of the lyrics is "Life is painless when you're brainless."
Right.
So
There you go. Oh,
there's
right. And he was so
little references
right.
like that, if you know what you're looking for, setting up
Right.
what's going to happen to him.
Right. Any final thoughts before I toss out some trivia and we kind of wrap things up?
I really enjoyed the movie quite a bit, and again, I am bowled over by the movie making, the craft of this movie, and
Right.
like from like how many millions of tulips they planted to the costumes to
Right.
like
Right.
all the creative visuals, and then the performances. You just gotta give those, like, all the people deserve the applause, and
Right.
like especially Ariana and Cynthia, they're really freaking good.
Oh my God! Yeah, the musicianship, the singing, and I have been singing my whole life. I was in choirs and stuff when I was young, and I'm a music junkie like yourself. So I'm always singing. So many wonderfully singable songs. So some numbers on this. So as of when I pulled this yesterday, 69% on the tomato meter. That's critic score, and 97% on the popcorn meter. That's from over 5,000 ratings from the Rotten Tomatoes website. Domestic opening of the film here in North America is looking between 145 and about 175. I've heard as high as 180 over a budget of $150 million. So it's already profitable out the gate. There are some that are saying that it could be the biggest opening of the year, or the biggest box office of the year, eclipsing Superman, which came out back in July, which you haven't seen. It is an absolutely fantastic
With
film.
the success of the first movie, I am not surprised that this is
built
doing
in.
well. The question
Yeah,
is
solid.
whether
Yeah,
the
solid
word of
built-in
mouth
audience.
is gonna sort of sustain it, or if this is going to be like, oh, big deal, but then you know what, the first one was better, so you don't need to if you don't want to, and then people don't go and see it. So I'm curious how that's going to shake out and what the fall off is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt even a film that does well will have generally a 40 to 50% week 1 to week 2 fall off, because people go out and see it. Boom, if they're going to go back out and see that number just continues to slide. So it'll be curious to see, like you said, if it was very front ended. But yeah, well, it's funny because I tried to look up some trivia, and there's not a ton of it yet. The only thing that is a little inside is that when Elphaba writes "Our wizard lies in the sky with her broom," it's likely a reference to the Wicked Rich Skywriting "Surrender, Dorothy" is a threatening message in the original film. That was the only inside I got. The first trailer of this got 113 million online views within the first 24 hours, and like you said, it was an absolutely built-in audience. So. Good deal. Cool. Well, Andi, this has been absolutely terrific. Thank you. If people want to talk to you about tell me a little bit about yourself and about kind of what you do in the entertainment realm. What's your thing?
Well, I've been on here to do Spider-Man with you because he's my favorite superhero. And
yes,
like you mentioned,
me too.
we both love Star Trek. So, but the thing is, I absolutely love musicals. So I have my own musical podcast, and I mentioned the name of it already. It's the Worldstage Theater Podcast, where I am on a little journey through the history of musicals right now. So I've gone from the 1930s through to right now. We're on the 80s, and we're going to end with the 90s in December. Before in January, April will be joining me to talk about Mamma Mia to wrap up that part of the podcast.
Yes. Absolutely. My wife, April, by the way. Yeah, she loved recording with you a couple of weeks ago, so she's pretty excited about that. Where do people find the Worldstage Theater Podcast?
It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify, Podbean. So
okay. I remember Podbean. That's where this show was hosted by Podbean for years and years. And they can find you on BlueSky. They just look up Andi, Andi. And I put that link in the show notes as well. But again, thanks for joining. You will be coming back time and again, I'm sure, next year when we start talking about Spider-Man live action cinematic films as we ramp up to Spider-Man Brand New Day next summer. But
sounds fun.
Yeah. Awesome. And as far as where you can find me and the Secret Friends Unite, we are on all the socials. Secret Friends Unite is Secret Friends Unite on all the big ones. I am at the C3, THECEE, THREE. You can find also, we do videos over on TikTok. I try to record at least a couple of times a week, things that I'm enjoying. When I do it in 3 minutes or less. And then you can also find that over on our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel is also a great place to find the great interviews we do with the Spotlight. We recently talked to character actor Rick Worthy, who is an absolutely awesome guy. We've got a lot of awesome stuff coming up with comic book creators, and a very special one that I don't even want to jinx it, but it's going to drop very shortly here on our Patreon, and it's two very, very big actors who are just very from the Star Trek franchise, who are super nice guys, sat down and talked to us, but also recently had comics legend, Marvel Comics and Iron Man legend Bob Layton was on our Patreon. So always our Patreon gets those spotlights first, and then a week later you'll get them, but there's a beautiful back catalog of those, so I encourage you to go to patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite and check those out. But we will see you next time, and thank you for joining us. I'll tell you as always that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.
Hey, Secret Friends Nation, thanks for sticking around after the credits, or if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. I am joined by a friend of the show, super great guy who has been on with us many, many times before. This is actor and, dare I say, philanthropist, Mr. John Billingsley, who was the wonderful Dr. Phlox on Star Trek Enterprise, as well as a number of other things. John, it is always awesome to see you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I think you have to be able to write checks with more zeros than I'm comfortable writing to actually be a philanthropist. Do-gooder, I'll take that. How about
Do
that?
good. Oh boy, it sounds like it should be on the old Batman show. Oh, do-gooder fighting the Joker.
Yeah.
Well, John, I wanted to slide you in here because we got some crazy stuff going on in the country these days. We're just getting off a government shutdown where SNAP benefits were pinched. We're also getting into the holiday seasons where the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas in this case, where things can traditionally get tight for a lot of people. So I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about the great work that you do with the Hollywood Food Coalition out there in Greater Los Angeles and how people can help.
Terrific. Well, I'll tell you a bit about the Hollywood Food Coalition, and this will be bifurcated because I've always been a great believer that while I work for and represent a charity that I have great faith in and believe does wonderful things, it's just as important, maybe even more important, to think about if you have the impulse to give to us, but you think, maybe I should look closer to home. Fine, do that. I will say that hunger and need and want in this country is sadly only getting worse. 1 in 5 kids in America is food insecure. Some 40% of Americans, if they were hit with an unexpected $400 to $500 bill, their roof caves in, their car is repossessed, wouldn't have the money in the bank account to pay it. There are a limited number of soup kitchens and food rescue organizations in the country. We do something that is very dear to my heart at the Hollywood Food Coalition. We serve a hot meal to all comers 7 nights a week, no questions asked, always providing choice, always providing dignity of service. And we also offer an array of other services to people who come through our doors. We try and, in essence, sort of provide a kind of a soup to nuts experience. If you want your bicycle tire repair, we've got medical vans. If you want some housing assistance, if you want some kind of referrals to other social service agencies, we very much believe in coalition building through the medium of food. And additionally, we rescue somewhere around 2.5 to 3 million pounds of food a year to share with other not-for-profits, basically to augment and buttress their meal programs. So think about a battered women's shelter that does great work, but may not provide 3 squares a day. Right. We're trying to say, small not-for-profits doing great work, tell us what we can do to help make sure you're feeding the people who come to you for service as best you can. And additionally, every Sunday, we have a wonderful program that we have created with a lot of marvelous people in the community, families, church groups, and schools. We have dropped off at our premises, in essence, every Sunday, somewhere around 3,000 bag lunches. And we make sure those lunches get distributed through some of our community partners all over the city, primarily to people living in homeless encampments. Just a slice of what we do at the Hollywood Food Coalition.
That's fantastic. And so if people want to donate, if they're local and they want to get involved, or if you're not local, like myself, I live on the other side of the country, how can they help? Where do they go? Where do they go online to provide assistance?
Easiest thing to do is to go to hofoco.org. Go to our website, and you can, if you live in Los Angeles and you'd be interested in getting involved, you can sign up to cook, you can sign up to serve, you can sign up to pull a shift in our warehouse space and help unload the food that arrives, sort it, cull it, store it, and get it out the door to some of the recipient organizations. And on Sunday, you can help our sandwich distribution program. And you can also donate there at our donation platform. But I also really want to encourage you to consider it, although I think, in a way, where you choose to give $1, it's not so much about the geography, because $1 you give in Portland or Seattle or Los Angeles is still helping people. Right. So if this is an organization, the mission appeals to you, you are helping some wonderful people in need. But if you feel you want to work locally, I would only say, look around and see what's in your neighborhood, what's in your city, what's in your community, an organization that is working on the ground with people in need. And that could be folks who are experiencing hunger. It could be folks who need legal assistance these days. That's obviously something that's pretty important. It could be teaching a kid to read. There's a
Right.
lot of ways you can give back to your community. This happens to be mine. I'm very passionate about it. But in the holiday season, it's mostly about rolling up your sleeves.
Right. That's fantastic. And as I said, I promised a quick message. So this has been fantastic, John. It's great to see you. hofoco.org. That's HOFO. Oh, I just lost it.
Oh, you got it. HOFOCO, Hollywood Food Coalition. HOFOCO. And it's
Ho, ho.
Oh,
All right, John, I will see you in the near future. Happy holidays to all. And thanks for spending this extra time listening.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
So much. Appreciate it.